Now, Ukrainian authorities say Russia launched more than 100 drones in overnight attacks, killing at least 3 people. The strikes were launched despite US President Donald Trump issuing a public demand for Vladimir Putin to stop, following another major attack on Kyiv a day earlier. Trump insists a peace deal must come soon. He says Russia has already made a major concession just by not insisting on conquering all of Ukraine.
Rescue teams are searching for survivors after a Russian attack on residential buildings in Kyiv. Thursday's strike killed around a dozen people and was the biggest attack on the capital since last summer. On Russian TV, these images from Kyiv don't stir any sympathy. When talking about the strikes, commentators discuss the enemy's weakness.
The relentless drone strikes have drained Ukraine's air defense system, leaving it unable to withstand constant large-scale assaults.
Strikes like this one and the recent attack on the city of Sumy are happening amid Donald Trump's attempts to broker peace between Russia and Ukraine. Recent leaks suggest that, for peace, Trump may be willing to officially recognize Crimea, the Ukrainian peninsula Russia occupied more than 10 years ago, as part of Russia. Trump himself said Ukraine had long since lost Crimea. His words were welcomed by the Kremlin.
It fully conforms with our understanding and with what we have been saying for a long time.
Some experts on Russian state TV even believe the Kremlin has already agreed with the Trump administration on a future Russia-Ukraine peace deal.
In our talks with the Americans, things are becoming more or less clear to me. Recognition of Crimea as Russian, a freeze along the current front line, and Ukraine not joining NATO.
In the studios of state-run TV channels, they believe only one thing stands in the way of a peace deal: Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky's refusal to recognize occupied Crimea as Russian territory.
With each day, each hour, each second, Zelensky's inability to negotiate becomes more and more obvious.
Some propagandists went even further, suggesting that Donald Trump has fallen under Volodymyr Zelensky's influence. They hinted that real peace might never come, and that Russia could end up in a bigger fight.
Zelensky is in control and pushing him towards war. We need to understand that sooner or later we'll have to face a full force head-on. Based on that, we must be ready.
Despite the fiery rhetoric of some TV hosts, Putin, according to a report from the Financial Times, is ready to agree to stop the war along the current front lines. Moscow political analyst Andrei Kolesnikov believes this would be the best option for the Kremlin.
If Putin wants to move further and reach the administrative borders of the occupied regions, or go even beyond, it will take him years. He doesn't have that kind of time. Resources are, after all, not limitless, including the patience of the Russian population.
The White House says the success or failure of the peace deal will be clear in 2 weeks. Meanwhile, for Ukraine, each day the war goes on risks more lives.
Trump's special envoy Steve Witkoff is currently in Moscow meeting with President Putin. This clip was released by the Kremlin, showing their second meeting this month and the fourth since February. Putin was accompanied by his foreign policy advisor Yuri Ushakov and his investment envoy. And for more, we can bring in DW's Riga correspondent Sergei Satanovski. Sergei, Trump's envoy Witkoff has met with Putin. What can you tell us about these talks?
Vladimir Putin has indeed met with Steve Witkoff at the Kremlin. We saw Witkoff greet the Russian president with the words, "Hello, Mr. President." They, at least before the meeting, they didn't share what they would talk about. But we also know that it's Witkoff's fourth visit to Russia since January, and just yesterday, ahead of this meeting, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said that Russia is ready to strike a deal with the US. Although, according to him, a few elements still to be worked out or fine-tuned, as he said. in any case, the Kremlin seems to be cautiously optimistic, and judging by recent leaks, the US has reportedly promised to officially recognize the Crimea Peninsula occupied by Russia almost 11 years ago as Russian territory, and also to block Ukraine from joining NATO. So that kind of outcome, of course, would be very welcome news in Moscow.
Now, Russian attacks on Ukraine continue. Are there any indications that they might stop, especially after Trump rebuked Putin for the Kyiv attacks?
Well, I don't think Russia will really stop until a peace agreement is signed. It might reduce the frequency of the strikes on civilian targets, for example, but that's probably as far as it will go. We see now how, on the one hand, Putin is trying to drag out the talks. He's trying to buy some time to gain something on the battlefield. But on the other hand, the Kremlin is doing everything to keep the US at the negotiating table because it knows there won't be any major breakthroughs in the fighting. And also Putin doesn't want to lose the US as a partner or as someone who could represent its interests in the West.
Now, would restored relations with the US outweigh Moscow's war goals in Ukraine?
Well, the Kremlin probably doesn't see things that way, though lifting sanctions is definitely one of its top priorities. But Russian diplomats, also the head of the foreign ministry, often say you can strike any deal you like with the U.S. administration, but in 4 years a new administration would come in and old agreements are off the table. So that's why the Kremlin keeps insisting on addressing what it calls the root causes of the conflict. And this includes, of course, Ukraine's potential NATO membership. And another major issue is what Russia calls demilitarization, essentially stripping Ukraine of its military. And it's unclear whether the two sides have found common ground on that point, but maybe this is exactly what could be discussed by Witkoff and Vladimir Putin behind closed doors today.
DW Sergei Satanovski there. Thank you very much, Sergei.